Yo, what is going on, everyone? We hope you had a great week. Welcome in, welcome all. Thank you again for being here. This is Talkin TV, your place for everything film, movies, and all sorts of shenanigans. Because if you guys know anything about us, you know that I think we do offer a lot of prolific and profound critiques and commentaries. We're known to get off the rails, and tonight is going to be no different. Now, Dom isn't able to join us tonight. He has a family engagement, and we hope he's having a nice time. You know, the man works hard, and he enjoys a little R&R from time to time, but that is no exception to the rule. We are here for you guys, as always, your fearless leader, me, the movie nerd. I was almost about to say Dom. I'm so used to him taking this part. TV nerd, thanks for joining us, guys. My name is Chris, one half of the Talkin TV podcast, and of course, joining us again on this Mandalorian weekly recap series, which we've dubbed Mando-Watch. Patrick W. Huber, no hashtag for you. What's going on, Pat? How you doing tonight, man?
Oh, nothing much. I couldn't really come up with a series that kind of lined up with this episode, so I just sort of went with the sort of soup Nazi pun.
You capped out on the 4th episode, huh? We got 3 strong, and you just couldn't get it done, huh?
Yeah, I could have brought in a random one from left field, but I just kind of didn't do it. I failed.
Fair enough. Now, is that how you've been doing it? You've been trying to find a science fiction show that sort of correlates with the episode of the week to comprise your hashtag out of?
Well, I've been watching the episodes and hopefully getting inspired in terms of like, oh, hey, what show should I do the hashtag? And let's just say maybe I was too busy watching this one to be inspired about a hashtag.
Okay, is that sort of saying something about what you enjoyed or didn't enjoy about it then?
Yeah, I think it's a little tease about some of the good things and bad things that we're going to go over in this episode.
Fair enough. And speaking of teases, we have a great show for you tonight. Before we jump into that, however, I do want to let you guys know that we have a lot on the horizon. We have so many Star Wars videos that we've been putting out this past month, a lot of different types of content. We actually have really only been covering Star Wars because, well, I mean, what else is coming out, right? I mean, that's kind of what's going on here. So with that being said, guys, we just wanted to take a moment to tell you guys, in case you maybe missed some of these videos, go check them out. We actually ranked Dom and I live. We compromised, Pat. For the first time ever, we compromised. We made trade-offs. I gave a little, I took a little, and Dom did the same. And so we kind of mapped out for you guys where we thought each episode of The Mandalorian fell from worst to first. So you guys can definitely go check that out right on our YouTube channel. That's, of course, you're here right now. But if you're listening on audio version, which we are on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Stitcher, Radio Public, to name a few, you can find us on See what I did there? I'm going old school with it, man. YouTube.com/Talkin TV. We also recently dropped our top 10 favorite Star Wars moments. It was a really cool episode. Basically, Tom kind of took the reins on this one, and he absolutely crushed it. He, of course, had some honorable mentions, and we think it's like a bit of a different type of top 10. So if you like that, it's our most recent video. Came out this Monday. You guys can go check that out on the channel. Of course,
also,
we did.
Christian, can I guess what the #1 moment was?
Go for it.
Did you guys say the credits?
Of what? Force Awakens?
No, I mean the opening credits, not the end credits, meaning the end of the movie. No. Just how awesome those opening credits are to get you into the story.
No, I don't want to spoil what they are. I believe that may be an honorable mention, Pat. But just to keep the Star Wars train rolling before we jump into good old Mando-Watch here, we also recently, last week, which we've been doing every week, is covering The Mandalorian. Guys, go back, and if you like me and Pat's thoughts, and if you missed Dom, Well, first of all, ask yourself why that is. Second of all, go back and listen to Dom from the past. We was on our episode 3 last week talking about, well, Mandalorian episode 3. I forget the name of it, but it was basically the Bo-Katan episode. Everyone knows that.
Yeah,
And
it was
last,
the Heiress was the name of that episode, and I think Dom got so amped that he needed to take this week off. I think that's my conspiracy theory.
yeah. He had to really fight for that one. You kind of challenged him a lot on it. There was a pretty, I mean, am I wrong? There was a pretty good back and forth between you guys.
Yeah, no, I thought we had differing opinions. I thought, like, overall, again, it's like this show has really solid writing, but it's missing something. There's always the je ne sais quoi, that little piece of storytelling that makes it amazing. And I don't know what it is, but it's not necessarily present in every episode.
Right. And guys, go back and see Pat from the past further elaborate on that. That's, again, our weekly Mando-Watch series, and you're here right now, and we thank you for being here. And last but not least, Pat had a really cool idea for our channel, which we really appreciate, called Binge or Cringe, where basically we made Pat binge the first season of The Mandalorian in a week to be fully informed for this series we're doing right now. And we kind of, I picked Pat's brain. It's pretty much me interviewing Pat about how he felt about the first season of The Mandalorian. Did I get that right, Pat?
Yeah, and the other thing I think you got right was the screen grab there that you found of me in one of the earlier episodes of the show. I think you really got to...
Did you see this yet? I kind of did it without asking you. I figured, hey, if you put it on our channel, then it's like ours to use. So I was like, that's got to be a good screen grab. But
hey, listen,
how do you feel about that, man?
Listen, I'm a video editor and screenwriter and, produce movies and all that stuff as well. And so it's whatever gets you the views at this point. So I completely understand it. And listen, I probably made that face a lot of times throughout season 1 of this show.
And surprisingly enough, I feel like I haven't made that face as much during this season. So guys, we have one hell of a show for you tonight. Just to remind everyone, the format of what we do here on Mando-Watch, we're going to start off with a recap. We're going to jump into our positives and our negatives. Everyone's going to declare their MVP of the episode, their all-star breakout cast member, and we're going to wrap it up with where we all think this ties into the greater Star Wars universe, aka our effects on the galaxy segment. So, Pat, we have a very special guest tonight. I don't know if I told you this.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I hope it's someone exciting, someone that can bring some as much energy as Dom to the table.
So I think that is a tall order, but I also think that this gentleman is a little more refined. Not trying to take a dig at Dom. I like Dom's crazy all over the all over the map energy, but this dude really knows how to get his points across and not really waste too much breath doing it. It's something I strive to do. As you guys can tell, I've already been pretty long-winded tonight. So without further ado, allow me to introduce our good friend and fellow YouTuber, whose links are also in the description, Certain Vids. What's going on, Certain? How you doing, man? Oh, you're muted out there, Certain.
No, I think it's within the program.
Uh-oh. It's looking like StreamYard has... Unfortunately, the bell has tolled for Certain and StreamYard tonight. While Certain is trying to set up his gear, Pat, why don't we jump into our recap section? Pat, you said you were going to take this one. Kick us off here, man.
Yeah, totally. I can totally do that. So this episode is episode 4 of season 2. Definitely called The Siege. And hey, it starts off with a giant comedy gag between Mando and Baby Yoda, finally putting the baby to work. Right? He's got to earn his pay if he's going to be traveling around the galaxy. So Mando has him in a conduit and basically is telling him, we need you to pull the red wire out and the blue wire out and swap the places. And of course, the child doesn't really know what's going on. So he basically puts the wires together, the reverse charges, and he pretty much kills himself. But it's Star Wars. It's a family show. So basically he just gets shocked and just kind of walks it off. So the child is very resistant to electricity, and I thought this opening gag was, a good start to the show.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt like, oh, so Baby Yoda just died? Like, I was like, how did he not die there? I mean, look, all I'm saying is I wouldn't put a positive and a negative wire together. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I think Disney should have put one of those warnings at the bottom of the screen. What you're about to see should not be tried at home. But anyway, so the episode then continues. Cara Dune is introduced as the new Marshal of Navarra, and she's cleaning up and getting things that have been stolen from this, group of spider-like creatures who have been plaguing, I guess, the streets of Navarra. And so she, sort of beats them up, takes them down, and introduces her sort of new role as the law enforcement of this particular planet. And Mando then lands and sort of meets her and Greef Karga, played by Carl Weathers, and basically, Carl Weathers offers to fix the ship, and there's this like crew member that really takes a good stare at Mando, a really creepy stare, and so I don't know
And the
what's.
score pretty much tells you everything in that moment.
Yeah, I don't know if he's just like totally into Mando. Like, yeah, that's sort of a someone I can get behind
Yeah.
or whatever.
Insert
Like,
ominous score cue to tell you all the subtext you already didn't pick up on.
yeah, it might not be like a reveal coming at the end of the episode or anything, but hey, it just might be like, hey, drinking buddies. Who knows? So then they go to the client's old hideout, which they basically have converted into a school for the planet. They decide to drop the child off and have him, in a traditional education setting for the first time. And instead of paying attention to his lesson plans, he kind of eyeballs these, macaroons that like a human child has. And the child's, quest to quench that hunger basically leads him to use the Force to steal
Macaroons.
these.
Wait, do you mean the Girl Scout cookies? The Girl Scout cookies. They paint the Thin Mints. They painted green.
No,
The
were they?
custom
No, I
Thin
don't think
Mints
they were
that they
Thin
had
Mints.
shipped
I
in.
think I think they were old, definitely Italian macaroons that were painted blue.
They looked like, you know what they looked like? They looked like lemon cookies, but they dyed the lemon. Like, I'm super Italian. We have like lemon cookies. The holidays are coming around. We're going to have a bunch of those. They're like perfectly round, perfectly shaped, but they just look like they put them in like, just like a plastic container. Usually they're a little more homemade, the presentation, and they had like green dye laying around from Easter. That's really what I felt was going on here. Like, they're like, oh, we don't have much
Yeah,
budget left. Let's just get this going. But I digress. We saw Baby Yoda use the Force for the first time in of course, the most important time to use it. Anyways, Pat, keep going.
yeah. I don't know. He's basically just using it for crime. So I guess that's where the child's growing up. Maybe it's a good thing he's back in school. He'll learn to settle down. So they go to Karga's office, and Mando finds that Mithral, the first sort of bounty in episode 1 of season 1, sort of this blue alien that has like gills and whatever. Basically, he's back to work on Navarra. He used to be the accountant for Carl Weathers, and now he is the accountant once again. And he's paying off his debt for how much money he stole. And so, it's sort of a comedic character, meant to bring a little bit of comedy to the episode and, bring back a familiar face. So they talk to Mando, and they're like, hey, your ship's being repaired, so it's going to take a while. So, why don't you work for free and help us do some amazing stuff by taking out this skeleton crew manned Imperial base that's on the other side of the planet? Like, hey, that's sort of the last little bit of trouble on Navarra, and if we clear that out, we can basically make this planet a trade center for the sector. And so Mando's like, nah, I can't be doing this stuff, and Carl Weathers talks him into it, and boom, they immediately set out, and they devise this plan that they're going to break in. They're going to basically turn off the coolant for the reactor core, and they're going to blow up this Imperial base. And as soon as they get there, it sort of seems to be, the skeleton crew very abandoned, like they thought it was. And they sort of wipe out all these, troops, and they're able to break in without a problem. And they sort of set the reactor like planned to detonate. And then they start to run off and escape. And they run across these 2 Imperial officers who are at a computer panel, and they're basically working together to erase data. And they keep saying, like, we got to get rid of this, shred it all, whatever. And then when Mando and, allies come into the room, they basically start shooting up the computer to destroy it faster. And they kind of take those guys out, and they're able to find a message from the doctor who originally sort of took blood from the child in episode 3 of season 1. And they basically are.
And they basically avoid calling them midichlorians for some reason, which made no sense to me. But hey, we couldn't say the word.
Did they say the M factor or something like that? They were like,
I just don't think they had the budget for it, to be honest with you, is what I'm sort of starting to read. Sorry, I'm being a little snarky there. But it's kind of like maybe a little bit of a true joke, if you ask me. But Jay Manley, hello yourself, man. How you doing, dude? And we have a special guest, Jay. Hang around. We're about to bring him in a few seconds here once we finish this recap. But thanks for being here tonight.
Yeah, so the doctor basically, says, hey, Moff Gideon, we ran out of blood and our tests are inconclusive and blah, blah, blah. And Mando's like, I killed that guy. He's dead. Moff is dead. And Mithro there is just like, no, this message is 3 days ago. So this is sort of a little bit of a reveal for Mando that Moff Gideon is still out there, still alive. And, I think it's quite interesting that we learned last episode that obviously, Moff is in the picture, and we get reintroduced to him in the season. But yet Mando is sort of blissfully unaware of his presence. Kind of an interesting writing thing there. But anyway, it's like, because of this, because the child is at risk, Mando knows that they want more blood from him. Mando sort of just like flies out of there and is going back to the school to team up with him. And he leaves, Karga and Dune and Mithro to basically escape on their own. And they get cornered, and the only way they can really escape is by jumping in an Imperial armored vehicle and, just make a run for it. And they start driving away, and of course the speeders go after them, and Carl Weathers is pow, 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 and taking them out. And then TIE fighters come in and pew, pew, pew.
And let's not forget Carl Weathers is doing this. He's doing this all while directing the episode too.
Yeah,
so really impressive.
Just adding all the stuff to his shoulders, and so like he can't seem to really take out the TIE fighters, and one of the TIE fighters takes out the guns and sort of leaves them defenseless, other than the armored plating of the vehicle. But like eventually they're just going to shoot through that. So it seems like their days are numbered, their minutes maybe. It doesn't seem like they have much to live for at this point. They're goners. And then Mando flies in with his ship, and he starts flipping around, barrel rolls, and shooting up these TIE fighters and doing some exquisite aerial maneuvers. And he destroys all 3 TIE fighters, and man, the child ate way too many cookies, because he just pukes all this blue stuff all over him because of the movement. And, then that's it. Carl Weathers pretty much like, hey, thanks, man. We'll have to get to the bottom of this. And Mando leaves, and the 2 things at the end that happen is that the kind of rebel officer that we saw in episode 2, he's now investigating this incident, and Carl Weathers gives him the runaround and really just says like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. So they can't really, investigate that much further. But the rebel officer talks to Cara Dune and basically says, there's probably always a place in the New Republic for you. And tries to convince her that, we need people like you to join. And then it cuts to an Imperial ship, flying through space. And, that's really, mechanic, that shady mechanic that the score just reveals is shady, basically is talking with an Imperial and saying, I planted the tracking on his ship. And so now we know that Mando's flying around with a tracker on his ship. And basically, Moff Gideon is informed that basically we got this tracker now. We're going to be able to find the child and Mando, and we're going to be able to take care of them. And Moff is really happy, and he seems to, take the news in good stride as he overlooks an army of troops. And, are these a new type of troops? Are these sort of just, what are they? We haven't really found out because the credits hit, and that's the end of the episode.
Cue concept art. And now let's get into it. Guys, the movie nerd, Dominic Rizzi, is in the house. We miss you, buddy. We're looking forward to having you back on the show next week. But this week on the show, guys, and Pat, you really drew that one out. So if there was ever a way to do suspense, it is this exact way. Guys, welcome again to the show tonight. Certain Vids, what's going on, man? Glad to have you here.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, man.
Okay, thank goodness. Thank goodness. That is a relief. I appreciate you having me here. I was going to say that I appreciate the kind words at the beginning, but yes, happy to be here. Happy to talk Mando. Let's dive into it.
Perfect, man. You took the words right out of my mouth. So you know what? Certain Vids, you're the newest one here to the party. Let's start off with you, man. Let's start with the positives. So what were some of your positive takeaways from this episode?
Okay, positives. While I don't think this had the best action out of any episode, I think the visual style was probably there. I think the way, not the actual action itself, but I think the way it was kind of structured, the overall structure of the episode I thought was great. It was kind of like a nice little turning point towards the middle there. When they find that message, I thought the structuring overall of the episode was paced really well. Other positives, I think the direction was like, well, that's a negative. So actually, I'm just going to stick to the structure. So yeah, I think
you don't have that many positives from this episode.
I don't really. I think okay, they did bank on Baby Yoda cuteness again. I think it was done well. I think that was done well. I think that was probably the most I've enjoyed Baby Yoda this season. Just because of the scene they had. I thought that was pretty funny. Like you were mentioning, he used the Force. That may have been the first time since episode 2 of last year. So that was a nice sight to witness. But other than that, I don't really have anything off the top of my head.
Well, I want to continue off of that because
go for it, man. Because me and Certain I'm learning that like while he knows his stuff, our taste couldn't be any further apart. Like we are light and dark side. You can decide who is who, but we couldn't be any further apart. Because Pat, take it away, man. Because
okay, I just want to talk about, dude. I want to talk about the child, and one of my qualms with the child is that he's pretty much a puppet. That's like, if he's in reality a being, like a sentient being, he's one that's walking around with a lobotomy. Like he doesn't really seem to interact with the world. He's just sort of like mindless. And I think him sort of being put to work and dealing with the wires and really being challenged and trying to figure it out and shocking himself. That's what they need to do with this baby, right? They need to set up challenges that are hard for him because he is sort of, that young in his species age, and really just have him try to figure out the universe. Like give him something to do throughout every episode, not just be a crappy looking prop. And I think the wires and I think stealing the cookies, like this is adding some personality to this thing. And I know you're talking about the cuteness and like that's what they're relying on, but that's fine. If you want to rely on the cuteness, do it. But like give him personality, and that will complete that picture and get people more on board with the cuteness.
No. I think you're using the wrong word there, Pat. They're not relying on it. They're quite literally banking on it. Laughing all the way to the plush doll bank. I mean, that's literally what Baby Yoda is. I'm going to keep saying that because he just keeps getting dumber. And the irony is he gets older with each episode. I mean, that's how life works. You don't end up one day younger the next day. And so it blows my mind how there's probably 3 good opportunities this past season, just like in season 1, where he could use the Force to, save the guy who's risking it all for him. Pretty much his father, it seems. I mean, the way that he, wiped up that vomit really looked like, oh, Mando, hey, look, maybe he's thinking about settling down, And so the fact that this little disgusting looking puppet just can use the Force to steal someone's cookies, which already is messed up. I mean, get your own cookies. You know, that's not a light side move. That's pretty. I mean, I play D&D. That's pretty chaotic neutral, man. Like, that's like not what you want. Like, that's just stealing someone's cookies like that. Like, cool, real classy guy there. So, yeah, we're already in the negatives because Baby Yoda like really ruined the show for me. But so before we jump into negatives and before I give my positives, Pat, did you have any positives? I know you kind of spoke and retort there to certain, but what were some of your positives for the episodes outside of the Baby Yoda nonsense? Because I think he's always going to be polarizing just by the way that they write him, and
it's so all my positives about this episode are sort of negated by the fact that this is the 4th episode of the season. This episode should have been episode 2. Let's face it. Like, you know, we have the giant worm, and then they go back to Navarro, and basically they're battling the Imperials. Moff Gideon is there, like he's reintroduced, like you know, they're basically blowing up this base. It has a lot of good action. I think anytime that they bring the Imperials and stuff like that into the picture, it really sort of adds something to the storyline of or the overall storyline of the show. And I really think that you need to give us a good sort of base in that. So I enjoyed this episode in terms of them just sort of having this mission of the week. You know, hey, there's this Imperial base. We think it's empty. We got to take it out. And then it's revealed that the base is not really as abandoned as they thought it was. And I thought they could have done a little more sort of like reveal some of the clone stuff that's going on with his blood. You know, give us a little more details, like have them find some like creepy stuff going on. But overall, like I think the idea of sort of going into the base, like shooting it up, and you know, I thought it was fun action. You know, it's kind of mindless action. There's not really much to it. And again, like every single episode of this show, there's something missing in every episode that I wish was there. Even though the show sort of is well told visually, in my opinion, it's just like, give us a little more, you know? And so I guess I'm sort of saying that I didn't mind this episode because it's setting up that overall Moff Gideon bad guy. But this is what I've been waiting for you know, since the beginning of the season. So I wish it was a little sooner. And then we got sidetracked with the whole frog lady, spider, and, you know, all this other stuff.
Sure. So, well, listen. Let me break down some of what you just said there before we get too far away from it, because it's so funny to me that I'm going to be, and we also didn't get Certain's overall thoughts yet, but it seems like right now I'm just going to go out there and say that this is not a perfect episode by any means. I think perfection is something you can't just give away willy-nilly. But by far, this is the best episode of this whole show that I've seen so far. I mean, it hit every beat that I've wanted this show to hit from day one. Here's why, okay? It fulfills all the what ifs in a way that isn't Disneyified or corny. Because, like, I really love Star Wars. I play the video games. I read the comics. I read the books. I'm all about the extended universe because I can't get enough of this series. As much as I hate on it, it's only because I love it. So it comes from love. And so I've always wondered, like, yeah, what is the state of the rebels in this point? You know, we're 40 years out now, they say, or something like that in the time of the Mandalorian. What are the Empire doing? There's got to be some holdovers, right? There's got to be something like that. So we're getting that. And I think this season's doing a really good job at sort of making me feel safe in this universe in regards to, all right, the pandering is kind of going out the window a little bit. Sure, they still have their BS episodes in the likes of episode 2, and I'll even give you some moments in episode 3. Although I'm a little bit disagreeing with you in regards to the overall impact, but you guys can go back and listen to our episode 3 recap. We're not here for that today. I really liked this episode because I thought it really intelligently pushed the plot forward while sort of keeping the overall tone of the show the way that it's been, which I'm now realizing I don't have an actual issue with the tone. I'm kind of okay with the Western style, a little more kiddie type show if we get interesting plot points that are interwoven with it. So that's kind of my take on it. Certain, man, where's your head at with all this?
I kind of disagree a lot because I don't think that was my favorite episode. That might have been my least favorite episode of the season. I wouldn't say in the series. I wouldn't say that. I
Okay.
think it's better than a handful, maybe even most of season 1. Which was not hit or miss. I did like it, but I think season 2 has been a massive improvement. This one, I think it lacked the like it was brought up, it was missing something. I think the action, it lacked a connection. Really, I felt like it was just action for the sake of action, which you were saying it pushes the plot forward of the episode as a whole. I do agree with that, but it felt really, there was a point where it felt kind of mindless to me, that I was just sitting there watching it and it was just kind of happening and I was taking it all in. And there were points where it regained my attention, but there was a lot of points where it was, maybe it's due to the way the action was directed, like the actual action. I mentioned the structure, but the actual action in the episode could have been better. I think I believe this is Carl Weathers' first time directing, so he did a decent job. But I think it could have used some improvement, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought the directing was good. I don't think it was the strongest we've seen, but once I found out it was him directing, being in it, having to balance that workload, that sort of juxtaposition of cast member and director, I thought he actually did a really good job. I thought that the small scale action scenes, the closed hallway fights, the Cara Dune being the marshal in the beginning, those were a little stock. They felt a little Power Rangey, for lack of a better word. Safe, easy to do, really just to get you from point A to point B in the plot. I really did like the final shootout at the end, the big chase scene. I thought that was really well done.
That was a little cool. I admit when
Only
Mando shows
cool.
up at the very end, when he shows up to save everybody, I thought that was really cool. And the chase itself, it was humorous. It felt kind of blockbustery, which I'm kind of over all that, but it was still kind of engaging. But the other stuff, it was a little hit or miss for me.
Fair enough. Pat, where's your head at with all this?
Yeah, I think the armored vehicle chase, the TIE fighters and all that stuff, I feel like that's like, oh, hey, we got to sort of up the ante a little bit for the TV show and get closer to the movies. At least give a taste of, some of that, space sort of vehicle, battles. And I think they did a good job. I think it kind of felt like it's not just sort of a dialogue-driven TV show. The action sort of took center stage and really kind of broke up any monotony. And I think, like that's been a big thing this season. Like episode 1, they're taking down the dragon. That's whole thing is just filled with action. I think some of the moments where they just sort of go away from these action sequences and start trying to tell the plot, like the plot is very empty, very sort of like only surface level. And it's like, oh, hey, here's Bo-Katan, and she's got the red hair, and it's played by famed, science fiction actress. And but it's like, I don't know. The character didn't really do much for me in that last episode. And that's what almost every episode sort of does. It's like they storm this Imperial base, they get this message about Moff Gideon, and they ran out of blood, and they got some clones going on. But like, what about all that? What is sort of
issue?
There is no like opposition to Mando. It's just like, oh, I learned this stuff. I guess I still got to get the child to, his race. And there's not really anything that really prevents them in their quest. They just sort of discover these things. And it's like, well, they could choose not to even bother with it, or they could, decide to investigate more. And I don't feel like it matters.
Yeah. So, let me further double down on, well, rather not double down, but explain why I said this was my favorite of all the episodes. And I genuinely do believe that wasn't just hearsay in the moment, trying to be a showman. It wasn't any of that. Here's why. My expectations for not only Star Wars under the Disney umbrella, but The Mandalorian are already so low that to say they're off screen is just an injustice to how low they are. So when I actually finally got something that from the start actually kind of was like, okay, opening sequence, a little filler. Is this just a filler? Oh, okay. So we're going to an old rebel base, so that means maybe there's going to be a tie into someone, and it's always you're hoping and praying that it progresses the further overarching narrative, which I'll give you is super thin. I agree 100% on that. But just the fact that we got that, where some weeks you don't even get any of that, it's like I'm going to have a heart attack or I'm going to enjoy this. And I would rather enjoy it. I'll be critical when we go live and talk about it, but in the moment, there's no reason to get frustrated. But that all being said, I really did think this episode was well written. As thin as it is, I'll give you that. I really did think it was well acted. I also thought it was very well shot, and I felt the fun of the moments where you were supposed to feel the fun, and I felt the intensity of the moments where you were supposed to feel the intensity. But again, this is me on The Mandalorian. The bar is always set lower. For example, than like an Amazon The Boys, or, you know, I'm about to start watching Fargo, which I'm sure is just different shows, right? One's rooted in reality, the other's rooted in sci-fi, but just the level of sophistication there, I assume with Mando going in is always going to be lower. So it's kind of where my head's at with it. But certain, man, we'll throw it back to you, dude. What are your thoughts telling you right now? What do you got to tell us about all this?
I think I think I've said what I've needed to say. I think it was overall, it was solid. It was a fun watch. It was just lacking something. It didn't really get to me. I think there was some times where I felt it was just a little, the pacing was a little off. But as a whole, it moved pretty nicely. I don't think it really grabbed me though until they found that message. And until we learned more about Moff Gideon and what's going on with the child and everything. So that was where I was like, oh, they've got something interesting going on. And I feel like there's a story, there's a really good story that they have. They're just really burying it in just like a lot of layers for whatever reason. But I think, while I do think this season has done a better job of kind of having a cohesive story where it's like, you know, you end an episode and then you pick up the next episode where you left off, and it feels more you feel that through line. You feel like it's not as fillery anymore as like season one. I still think there's a lot of just kind of, how do I say, fluff. It's not a bad thing, but it's there, and I do kind of mind it. I do want a little bit more of a plot-driven narrative, and I don't think I'm really getting that. At least this episode didn't really do that for me. While it did have some elements that I feel like will obviously play a part later on, it did give us some more insight. I still didn't. I didn't feel that connection to the episode.
Okay. No, you know what? I hear you on that, man. And I don't think I don't think anyone should settle. I don't think that's how we get good art, is by being easy on these people. So right. I totally agree with that. And I hope you guys don't think I'm going soft here tonight. Again, I was impressed by this episode. But so let me ask you guys this, because it kind of seems like you and Pat are a little more on the same side of the aisle here, as opposed to me, where I'm a little more all in on this one. So I'm going to ask you guys a few series of questions, and I have a few of them. So if you guys can keep your answers a little quick, a little brief, just so I can really get them all out here, because I want to know if it wasn't enough for you where it was for me. So, like, to be more specific, let's start here. The old abandoned Imperial base, that was enough for me this episode. I was like, this is really cool. I dig this kind of world building. Let's start with Pat. Was that enough for you? Or
like I said before many times, anytime that they do the Imperial stuff, I'm all in. I think that's really sort of the center of the antagonist here, and anytime that it comes up, it excites me.
Okay. What about you, Certain?
Yeah, same. No, whatever they do, that I mentioned it when me and Chris were on Matt's channel, but whenever they do something, even though it does shrink the universe a little bit, but when they draw those connections, when they kind of make references or just make it feel like you're still in that same universe, I do dig that. So yeah, the stuff that they did was definitely enough this episode.
Okay, cool. Because I just want to see where we like differentiate here. And
Right.
You know what, Certain? That was a very good point, man. The way you described these tie-ins to the greater Star Wars universe that The Mandalorian does, I think it was expertly done when you say shrink. They don't have to shrink the universe when they do it, but somehow they always seem to make it feel smaller, don't they?
A little bit. Yep.
Blows my mind, man. I don't get it. That's a very good observation. So moving forward, bringing back Carl Weathers and Cara Dune for at first what seemed like a little cash grab to some of the stars of last season wasn't actually enough for me at first, but I liked where it went. What was your guys' takes on that? We'll start with Pat this again. Yeah.
Hey, the only thing I'm going to say is, as long as you're not like hardcore reading social media, you're fine with both of them back. I think they did a good job representing their characters, and I enjoyed them. I enjoy them on the screen. I think they do well as allies of the Mandalorian.
Okay, certain. What about you, man?
Yeah, I agree. I think if you just look at the characters, I felt like it was fine. I tried to separate everything else, but while I was digging them at first, I felt like their role was minimal, and I'm sure they'll come back later in the season. At the moment, I'm a little meh on them. Like, I like the characters, but it was an odd. Maybe not an odd choice of using them. It was just like, from what I remember of them, I felt like they could have been used better. But I do see the fact that they didn't really, that's all you could really do with them in this episode. So it's like a weird thing. Like, I want one thing, but I can't really have it because of the way it's structured. So it's like, I'm just kind of in the middle on it, really. But I do like the characters and I enjoyed their presence. It's just like an odd spot that I'm in.
Okay. I got two more for you guys. The blue guy coming back from Carbonite, actually. For me, I thought it was, sure, that's fine. I mean, I guess that's how they explain their taxi ride. I really was very upset when that was the first thing I saw in the first ever episode of the first season. And to see him again was a little like, oh, great, this guy's back? Cool. Like, that's how I felt. So it wasn't enough for me, but again, I liked where this episode went at the end, so I end up forgiving a lot of my initial gripes. But we'll throw it to Certain first. How'd you feel about seeing an old familiar face again?
Yeah, I thought he was okay the first time we saw him. This episode, I think he was kind of the same. Like, you don't really learn anything about him except for the fact that he does have a debt. So it was like interesting, but I'd be fine with not seeing him again. That's kind of where I'm at. It was cool. It was cool to see him, and I think he had some he had some humorous moments here and there. But it's like, as a character, it's like, take it or leave it. So
Disney always has to have the gag character in there. They can't ever just have a straight shooting episode, can they?
I think gag character is exactly what it is, and it is what it is. It's just a gag. One of the things that I thought that really actually the main thing that took me out of this episode was that he has 350 years of debt, and Carl Weathers was like, "You get out of that car, I'll take 150 years off." It's like, whoa. Yeah, 350 years of debt, and you get out of the car and 150 is gone. Like, sign me up. That sounds like a a good deal. I'm like, so I couldn't really like take the character seriously, and like that sort of was like, Carl Weathers is a bad negotiator in this show.
I like the gag with his speeder, and it like broke at the end. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. Yeah,
but other than that, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, not the greatest thing I've ever seen. Now, the last thing that I want to speak about is the fear of using the M word. Apparently, we can't say midichlorians in the Star Wars universe, apparently, because we don't have the budget for that. Or maybe the writers didn't do their homework. Maybe they had Rian Johnson look this one over or something. But, with that being said, I thought outside of them just for some reason assuming that the Star Wars universe forgot what midichlorians were, the fandom I felt like they were trying to pull the wool over our eyes quite literally with that one. I thought that was a cool moment. I thought it kind of said a lot, because is the Empire trying to bring back the cloning era? Is the Empire trying to fabricate a new Sith Lord? Your mind goes off into thinks in all these different places. As vague as it was, I think that will come up in a later segment on this show, but the initial presentation, the way it played out on screen, wasn't the worst, but it also wasn't the best for me. I think the jury's a little out where I stand, but we'll go to certain again first this time. Was that reveal of the old scientist guy coming back enough for you this week?
Yes, that's what I keep going back to, because that was the moment that I felt it was a nice like tonal change in the moment. I thought it was a nice change of pace. That was the moment that kind of drew me in. It was towards the latter half of the episode, but regardless, it was the one thing that kind of stood out to me. That's the highlight of the episode for me, to be honest. So yes, definitely enough.
For sure, for sure. Pat, man, where's your head at with all that?
Hey, it's I don't really care about the Metacorians. Like it's like anything from that first three movies, 1, 2, and 3. I could live without. So hey, if it becomes cool, if they kind of bring it and like we learn more about the blood of the child and what they're doing, and we see some sort of like mutated clone creatures that are an actual threat to Mando. Like right now, any bad guy that's in front of Mando, he just shoots him with perfect aim, and there's really no challenge. Like he has the armor which protects him at all. Like no one has really hurt him. The only thing that's really hurt him is water, right? When he jumped in episode 3 to save the child, we learned he couldn't swim, and like the spears that they were trying to kill him with didn't even really hurt him. It's just that he couldn't swim. So like, what weakness does this guy have? And it's I don't know. It's one of those things where like, give me a little more about the Metachlorians, and maybe I'll be on board.
Yeah, Pat is not a fan of prequel fodder. It seems that's fine.
It just doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, you can mention it, but it doesn't really mean that it makes a difference in the story that we're being told.
Fair enough, guys. Before we jump into our MVP section, did I leave anything out? Anything you guys want to discuss about this episode? I'll take that as a no. So
the crickets have spoken.
Yeah, the crickets have spoken. With that, you guys are real critics on this one, huh? That's fine. I mean, hey, man, look, I'm all for not liking something just because it's Disney or Star Wars. So
I think I enjoyed this episode a lot this morning. And now that I'm here talking about it, it sounds like I'm super critical. So I guess that's what a whole day of thinking about the episode does to you.
That's what it'll do. But with that being said, guys, we are now in the MVP segment of this show. If you're new here, or if you're not familiar, basically this is where we're picking out the standout performance. It can be anything from the costume design crew to the directing to, of course, any of those friendly faces on screen. So we'll start off with you, certain man. Who was your MVP of the episode?
I'm thinking about this because I think in all honesty, I think it actually is Baby Yoda, because he had the one moment it was like, number one, it was engaging. Number two, it was funny. It was also cute. That was some of my favorite Baby Yoda out of probably the entire series. And because I can't really say an MVP. Well, I could give it to the structure. I could give it to the pacing, even though I did have gripes with it here and there. But I'm going with just Baby Yoda in general, because he uses the Force again. That's enough reason for me. So there you go.
Okay, fair enough. That's our first Baby Yoda drop on this series. I'll have you know. We're all a bit critical of him here, but Pat, man, who was your MVP of episode 4?
I still haven't really decided, and I'll tell you what, it's down to the macaroons and how delicious they kind of looked. I think I would have tried to use the Force to get those cookies. Yeah. Are basically Carl Weathers. I think I'm going to have to go with Carl Weathers. Just really stepping up and directing this episode, and like still giving a great performance. The Mithro kind of alien character was probably just there to give him someone to riff off of and really build his character. And so I'll just say, like, he sort of was a consistent presence in this episode from behind the camera and in front of the camera. And therefore, I got to give it to him.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I think he did a phenomenal job directing this thing. And that moment where he plays with Baby Yoda and he's like the grandfather that hasn't seen his grandkids in forever. I mean, I love that he simultaneously made the call for that to be in the show, because he directed it and assigned him to be the one to act it out. Love that. So much subtext there. We'll wait for the interviews to come out and see what that one was all about. But for me, let's all separate the art from the artist here. I'm going to have to go with Cara Dune. I think she is a super underrated performance in this show. I love the whole story of the defected rebel character, because we all hear the Rebel Alliance being this super clean, polished, shiny group of freedom fighters who have never done any wrong. And, well, they kind of get into that a little bit at the end of the episode, you know? If the politics maybe weren't so heavily involved, Alderaan might be around, and other planets as well. Naboo, for one. I know that wasn't referenced, but just think about those prequels, right? And how I feel that there was just so much of this political back and forth, almost like a House of Cards, that unfortunately people sometimes suffer. And so I think it's really cool what she not only brings to the table in regards to her character's backstory, but on screen, I really like her with the Mando. I think they have a good chemistry. They don't step on each other's toes, being kind of both like badass characters. And I really enjoy the role she's fallen in, being like the marshal to this town. And I love that her and Carl Weathers are kind of like that like pit stop that you can go to and rest up at. If this is like an RPG, they're like that safe spot you can go to, and like, you know, your character's not going to get looted or anything while he sleeps. You can set it in Oblivion for like 12 hours, roll it back, really get your mana and all that stuff back, and it's cool. I dig him. Carl Weathers was you know, he was my my runner-up for what it's worth, because I mean, hats off to him. You know, he really directed his butt off, I would say. So, guys, with that being said, we are about to enter our last segment of the show. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Everyone's links to find them are in the description below. But let's talk about it, guys, because I think we have, for once, a lot to talk about in this section. What do you guys think the effects of this episode and the series so far are going to hold on this galaxy that we love far, far away? Pat, we'll throw to you first for this one.
I don't have much to say. I think, you know, hey, listen, these Imperials, they're up to no good, and they better do something in somebody's neighborhood pretty soon, because I need something. Just give me like some, you know, good old fashioned Imperial genocide, where something actually bad happens that has consequences for the rest of the show. I go back to Tatooine and you know, find the gunslinger's body, clone him, and make him like the mountain of this show. You know, do something that the audience is going to hate the Imperials doing. You know, anything. You know, I'm desperate. You know, I just came up with that crappy idea. Like, do something, please.
So are you, before we throw it to certain, are you more out or in at this point in the season?
I think, you know, I've been going sort of down in terms of energy for the show, and I think this one keeps me in it. I want to see what next week's episode is. I'm sort of excited to get going,
Okay.
and I just need that push. I just need something, and we get closer and closer and closer to that. But I'm afraid that the season's going to be over by the time I get it.
Yeah, season 3 is when we might get into some real plot if we keep up the pace we've been getting. I hear you, man. I think next week will be a big episode, but certain, man, what do you think this episode has in regards to affecting this overall galaxy?
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting situation, because we know the sequels come. We know how the galaxy is at some point. It's just a matter of what happens in between there. So whatever does happen, it's going to be it's either going to lead us into what the sequels are like, or it's going to be something different, something temporary. Not sure what happens on that front, but yeah, I agree with Pat. You just got to keep it interesting. Just whatever happens after, like you were saying, after the pace that we've been going at, I just need story. I just need a plot. I just need something to latch onto, something that keeps up the drive for the show, keeps up my energy in it. You're asking in or out. Right now, I'm pretty in. But if the next episode is like this one, or you know, one of the episodes beforehand, or just like a season 1 episode, I'm fine with being out. Right now, I'm still in, but it just depends. I do think next week's episode, I don't know why Siri keeps coming up. I do think next week's episode will be story driven. I think that one will have some big. You know, they're going to play some big cards in there. I think Ahsoka Tano will probably be in that episode. But as of right now, just give me anything. Just something. That's all.
You're teetering, it seems.
It's a little bit, and I hate to be that way, but I kind of have to.
Yeah, so I think last week I kind of went all out there certain, and I predicted that when they were crashing on the ship, it was Darth Maul who he won't let him live. I think that, you know, as all good Imperial leaders of history do, they answer to someone, and you find out about them in the third act of the last movie. In this situation, we'll learn about them in the third act of whenever they wrap this show up. And I think him was Darth Maul, who actually, you know, had that Imperial commander bite that electronic chip and kill himself. I don't think it was just coming from, you know, Giancarlo Esposito's character, Moff Gideon. So this week, I think there's a lot here. You know, I think it's going to take a while to get there. Unfortunately, like you said, the pacing on this specific episode was really good, but I think the pacing of the show overall and how they sort of disseminate the story isn't very good. You know, we've spoken about that a lot, guys. But there's a lot there, you know, like there's rumors that Rex might be around, and obviously it seems like we're getting Ahsoka next week because that is the Filoni directed episode. But if we don't, we're still getting her at some point this season. And there's a lot already there in regards to her context, her backstory, how it ties in, how her and Bo-Katan are so intermingled. And it's almost going to be like, I believe there was a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion that happened on the internet this weekend. I feel like we're going to get a little bit of that in regards to one episode where you're going to see Rex, you're going to see Ahsoka, and they're not going to quite have the same step that they had, but it's going to feel good to see them all together again, Bo-Katan and the whole gang. And I'm sure when the Obi-Wan show sort of, as we know, Deborah Chow didn't direct an episode of Mandalorian this season because she's got the lead showrunning role on the Obi-Wan show. I'm sure there'll be some CW style crossovers, as this show has a lot of CW qualities, unfortunately.
Yeah,
we got into all that on Basics Entertainment show last week.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think there's actually a lot in this segment, and so I also think this little clip that we spoke about, the scientist guy coming back, and the very well-placed 3-day-old message that Mando's mind was absolutely blown because he thought he finished the job, but he never went back to find a body, so that's kind of on him. There's a lot there, man. I mean, I really feel like they could literally restart where we sort of left off at. And it's just, we're in the Outer Rim now, and we know that sometimes things happen on the Outer Rim that don't really make their way to the center point of the galaxy, especially if you read comics and the canon stuff I'm talking about right now, a lot of the Marvel things and all that. There's a lot of in-game crazy stuff that happens in that Vader Down comic that never reaches Coruscant because it's just so far out there. And so that's kind of why I liked that Imperial base being so far out there, because it makes you ask, it answers the what ifs you ask yourself after you finish a good comic, a good game that's in canon, you know? Well, you know, sure, we're here with all the main characters, but there's got to be other stuff going on, and now we're getting that. And so I really think that this show could have huge implications. I can't answer where these questions are going, but there's so many elements here that can make such compelling storylines. I also think effects on the galaxy, they're going to lose viewership come another season if we get this same sort of, here's an episode with substance, here's 3 without, here's one that kind of has a little, and then here's 2 more at the end that have it.
Yeah.
So with all the cool things we're playing with, I still don't feel fulfilled, but I do think there are a lot of effects on the galaxy, which is why I'm in right now. I'm like not really in, but I'm in because in Filoni I trust. So with that being said, I want to thank everyone in the chat, and Jay, he raised a cool kind of like, what if? You know, he thinks the Empire might be looking for Ahsoka as well because the child's blood might not be as strong as they hope it to be, which I think they kind of might have alluded to a little bit. You know, they need more sampling, need to get more of those midichlorians. So there's a lot of cool stuff here to play with. Sorry to make that so long-winded, but I just don't want to overlook that just because the show's been a little lackluster. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think they're rebranding the midichlorians Macaroons? Like that's why they said M and then Macaroons are there. I don't know. But to answer Jay's question in the chat, he asked me if someone needs to turn to the dark side, and I wouldn't mind some renegade Sith like zealots or something like that. Maybe that's stable boy, or well, I guess this is in the past from the Return of the Jedi, but like some stable boy that's like wants to be a Sith. Bring that to me or something. But I think the big twist, the betrayer of Mando, it's got to be Bo-Katan, right? Because she clearly has an agenda that's set up in the last episode with the dark saber, and so I think to get the dark saber, she might have to do something with the child that Mando's not going to really agree with. So I wonder if they're sort of setting up this dynamic for the end of the season, and that's really going to be where our conflict goes. Is that they're going to be at odds, despite the fact that she has a noble end goal that is tied into sort of who they are as a people.
That's true. They did kind of set that up. It sort of seems like Bo-Katan is going to use Mando's services, and then when she reclaims Mandalore, sort of do away with the religion that they sort of tantalized Mando for being a part of. Seems like there's a disconnect there within their own people, which might explain some of their unfortunate history. But hey, we'll see if that happens. This show's pretty obvious. I wouldn't put it past them. Certain. Before we jump out of here, any last thoughts in regards to the future of the galaxy segment? Or
yeah, no, I'm good. I think we covered everything.
Also, out of 5 stars, certain. What do you give this episode? Let's continue that tradition.
Stars. I believe right after watching it, I gave it a 4, which my thoughts this past hour might not have conveyed that, but that's what I gave right out of the gate. I think I might still be sitting. It's like a low 4. It's like a light 4, more so 3.5 or. I go by 0.5, so like 3.5, 4. It's kind of in that range. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting.
That's fair. That's very fair. For me, it's a 4, a solid 4 out of 5. Really, not only because, I should say, how well of an episode it was. I thought it was a really tight little screenplay, which also managed to tie into the greater narrative of the show, however strong or weak that is. I really liked I just really liked it, man. I thought it was fun. It had energy. It had heart. It had everything I want Disney Star Wars to be able to produce with their resources and what we know they're capable of in regards to how damn charming some of those Marvel films are. And so, yeah, it's a solid 4.5, and it gave me hope for the rest of the show going forward. Pat, what about you, man?
I'm sort of using more of the DEF CON scale, for this one. If we get to 1, we're in deep trouble. But we're currently at 3 from last episode, and I think this episode, I think it's sort of, I'm going to keep it at DEF CON 3. I like this episode, and if I was going on the strict star system, I might be with you and say 4. But I am really hesitant. I want something else that I'm not quite getting yet. So I'm going to keep us at 3 on the DEF CON scale, and hope next week's episode can move us up.
Okay, fair enough, guys. And we'll be here again next week. We'll be here live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on our YouTube channel. Our weekly Mando-Watch series will continue, and we hope to see you there. Thanks again for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. Certain, I'm going to pull something up on the screen, and I want you to explain it because I think it's awesome, but I think you could do a way better job at sort of telling people what this is. So why don't you tell us all a little bit about what it is you do here on YouTube, man?
All right. Well, if you don't know, that's my channel right there. I make video essays on movies and probably TV too. I will at some point at least. But you can find me on certain vids. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd. That's a bunch of old stuff there that I've been doing since I think 2019. That's not when I started, but that's when I started doing the movie thing. So if you want to check me out, feel free to do so. Leave a comment. That would be appreciated. And thank you, Chris, for having me on. Nice to meet you, Pat. And
yeah, same here.
I'd be happy to come back.
Dude, for sure. Hit us up whenever you want to come on. You're always more than welcome, man. You've had us on your channel more than a few times now, and it's always a blast when we get to chat with you. I know our schedules sort of differentiate a bit, but I really appreciate you coming on tonight and hanging out, man. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us here on Talkin TV tonight. It truly means the world. You guys could please subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment on this video. That would really help a lot, and follow us on Instagram at Talkin TV Podcast. It's a passion project, but we're sinking everything we have into it, and so we hope you guys will reciprocate that. And honestly, you have been, which is the crazy part. We just crossed another 1,000 views. I think our quickest time yet in 9 days. So thank you guys. That really means a lot. I know Dom really wanted to be here tonight to sort of say that, so he told me to really make sure I hit that, and I already was, but that comes from both of us, and we really appreciate it. Pat, we appreciate you co-hosting this series with us, man. It's been a blast having you each week. Thank you for being here. Is there anything you want to tell the people about before we head out of here tonight?
Hey, not really. I might win fantasy football this week. Hey, I'm excited. So I'm looking forward to this Sunday.
And just so everyone knows, in our league, I am the commissioner. My picture is Thanos because I'm the ringleader and I'm in second to last. But if Pat loses a few games in a row and a few other people lose a few games and I keep on this winning streak I just started, I could be in the finals, and we'll see if that happens.
Yeah,
we'll keep you guys
I think
posted.
we need a grunge match in the playoffs. So I need to make the playoffs. You need to make the playoffs, and we need to settle this 1-1 tiebreaker thing that we have going on here.
We could set up a DraftKings head-to-head, by the way, if you're down to throw a little money on it. Not saying we're gambling, though. That's we can actually do a free match, which I think could probably be better for YouTube and everyone. But yeah, with that being said, guys, this has been Talkin TV. I am your TV nerd signing off here. We had a blast tonight, and we also post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on YouTube. A weekly audio podcast goes out every Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. right when the birds wake up. And Dom does a really good job getting that one out. Lord knows I could, but that goes to Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Radio Public, and a whole slew of other places as well. We appreciate you guys being here, and hey, we'll see you again next week for Mando-Watch. This is the way. How corny was that?